Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to another week of talking with my favorite doctor, Dr. Denise. It's good to be with you. Denise, how are you personally doing in the midst of this shutdown?
I'm doing great, but we're getting a little sad not being able to see people in person. Because my work, I depend on seeing, being right there with the person.
Yeah.
So doing the best we can.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in kind of getting sick of the technology to rely on and would like to get back to seeing other people.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm grateful for the technology.
So what we want to do today is maybe encourage you if you're listening to this or watching this. We've talked about this season as a roller coaster. It has ups and downs. We want to do a little bit more of an up today. And so we're talking a little bit about how do you grow in adversity. This is clearly a season that is difficult and challenging and unlike one we've ever seen before. But that doesn't mean we can't grow. So I want to ask that question to you, Denise. Who is weathering this well?
That's a great question. Sometimes it depends day to day, but I think one of the things we're doing is going back. We can learn from the past how to deal with the crisis in the present. And I think a lot of it is if we have our value system structure in place, God first, parents, grandparents, then the kids. Our kids are feeling very much more secure if they know that the parents and the grandparents have the lead on this. And we learned, I come from a generation where my parents grew up through the Depression. My grandmother lived on a coal mining, and my grandmother lived in a coal mining, kind of where you shopped at the company store, and just how their lives evolved. They always looked at what can we do? How can we make it better?
Yep.
And it's real easy to go with what's not going on well. But I think we're kind of looking at, I call it the 2020 Little House on the Prairie. We're kind of learning how to live a little simpler.
Well, and it's interesting to be forced to do that. We've always, so many times I'll watch a show on HGTV and it's this family that wants to go to some island to simplify their life.
Yeah.
And here it is coming right at you, whether you wanted it or not.
Or tiny homes, where they're doing that.
Absolutely. That's a great example.
Yeah, it's just, and I think I mentioned it to you. I saw our neighbor coming down the street. She's got kids from second grade to high school. And now, like the Little House on the Prairie, we're doing one-room schoolhouses. And what we're seeing is the older kids are helping the younger kids. And the parents are actually learning some things, like I learn about constellation of the stars for my grandkids. And the kids are learning from the older ones. The older ones are learning how to help the younger ones. It's just really becoming an interesting dynamic rather than everybody in their own rooms.
Yeah, and being on social media a little bit more this season because there's not much else to do, what I'm seeing is the roller coaster of this experience has shifted. Now people are trying to find the positive. People are trying to encourage others. It went from look at all these pictures of me hoarding toilet paper or all the empty stock shelves and predictions about death rates. And now it's shifted toward luminaries for those who work on the front lines, people who are caring for people in need, sending notes to different people. I think that's wonderful to see positive growing out of a really difficult time.
It is. I think I don't know if that looks backwards, but my husband made this sign. And we stuck it on the garbage cans and the mailboxes and our front door. And now we're going to stick little notes on our neighbors' mailboxes just to say, hi, we're thinking about you. Because we have neighbors that are coming over to ask us, is there some, standing 10 feet down at the bottom of the driveway. But we're trying to, you're right, rethink.
Well, if I could encourage anybody listening to this, one thing to think about doing if you're just especially feeling stir crazy or cabin fever is get out and just think about who could you thank today? And then what's the appropriate way to thank them? So I had this idea, hey, we have friends who's a nurse, let's make them a meal. But because of all this other stuff going on, making them a meal doesn't work right now.
Right.
We came up with this idea of why don't we take a poster kind of like the one you did and just stick it on their window. So I'm still outside, they're inside, but here's a little simple way for us to just say, hey, thank you for being you. Thank you for what you're doing. I think that means a lot.
It means a real lot. I've seen a teacher who went to all her classroom kids and just had a sign she hung out the door of her car telling the kids she's thinking about them. which is really, really sweet. And I do see what you're saying. Initially we saw the character of people. Some people were hoarding like crazy. Now we're seeing, just like they did on the farming communities, they're using what, they didn't kill 5 chickens if they needed one. They're just using what we need and kind of going into those pantries and freezers and cupboards and using up stuff. Right now, this is embarrassing, but I'll tell you, my husband loves Costco.
Who doesn't?
He cannot bring a condiment back bigger than your hand because we're not running a hotel. But we have 10 cans of mushroom soup, and I don't even like mushroom soup. So we're trying to figure out what we can do with mushroom soup.
Oh.
And they did that, I think, in the homes on the prairie. They used what they had.
Well, I grew up on the prairie. I grew up in the farming community, and I know that one thing that I see my kids doing, as this has gone on further and further, is their imagination is growing.
Oh, yes.
Because there's nothing else to do. So I said, Denise, before we started the call, we'd love to take them to the zoo. They'd love to see the new lions at Brookfield Zoo. They'd love to go do the things we love to do.
Yeah.
We can't. It's closed. But we can go down to the creek and get active and look for stuff and explore and get hands-on in a way we wouldn't do. Sometimes constraints actually, I think, encourage creativity. And so rather than looking down on being constrained to a moment or a time or a rule, there's actually an opportunity here.
It's brilliant. And we're finally seeing kids being allowed to use their imagination. It's okay if a kid is bored, because that stimulates, one of the things my younger son is doing with his kids, they're doing picnics. They've had a snow picnic. They've had an in-house picnic. They've had dinner on the floor, and it's been really fun. And the kids are sharing, because when you're sitting with kids, it's not about, we can't mandate quick, tell us how you feel.
No.
It's the quantity of time. Then you get quality time.
Yeah.
And picnics are great, and the kids had a lot of fun doing that. I think you're right. Walks, we're seeing families taking walks together, which is really amazing, and kind of doing little scavenger hunts as they're walking. We're seeing kids doing scavenger hunts in the home, looking for things, just having fun. Yeah,
I saw somebody did a game with us over the holidays, and it's an easy game. Here's one for you if you're watching and you're thinking, what can I do for 20 minutes for my kids? Find 20 random objects, put them on like a cooking tray, a 9x13 pan or whatever,
I love it.
and then cover it with a towel. Get all the family around, and then say, give a piece of paper and say, okay, I want you to write down. I want you to look at this for 30 seconds. And I'm going to cover it back up with a towel, and we're going to make a contest to see who can write down the most things that they can remember.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Yeah.
Pretty simple, easy, but simple things you can do. So today, we just wanted to have a fun call with you. Hope you watch this and walk away thinking, hey, there's something I can do today. Take advantage of the moment. This is an opportunity for growth in the midst of constraints. So don't feel bad about that. Let's celebrate that. If you do something great, would you post it on this thread and share it with other people? A nice way to share. We'll be back next week. Denise, tomorrow we're going to talk about, next week we're going to talk about how do we care for people who are struggling. So some of us are doing well with this, but we all know a couple people who aren't. And so how do we just care for them? Sound good?
Thank you for your leadership.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks, guys.